How does it feel to be one of the best-selling artists of all time?
Are you talking to me?
Looking at you.
That doesn't sound too bad to me.
In the summer of 2008 at Glastonbury, more than 100,000 fans sang Sweet Caroline as Neil Diamond stepped onto the stage at age 67. He smiled and raised his hand to greet the crowd. Just as he had done for over 4 decades, few would have guessed that this same man had once written a farewell letter before a surgery lasting more than 10 hours, unsure if he would survive. Diamond's life has always carried 2 parallel images: a legend who sold over 130 million records and created countless hits, and a man who grew up in poverty, endured broken marriages, family loss, depression, and Parkinson's disease that ultimately forced him off the touring stage. Diamond never ran from pain. He turned it into music. Solitary Man and I Said both reflect a deeply personal loneliness. So what helped a poor boy from Brooklyn remain standing after so many upheavals? The answer begins in his childhood. Childhood and difficult beginnings. Neil Leslie Diamond was born on January 24, 1941, in Brooklyn, New York. His parents were Jewish immigrants with roots in Poland and Russia. His father, Akiba Diamond, worked as a dry goods merchant. His mother, Rose, stayed home to care for the family. Money was limited, and stability was rare. During World War II, Akiba was drafted into the U.S. Army. The family relocated to Cheyenne, Wyoming. The move disrupted Neil's early childhood. He had to adjust to new schools, new neighborhoods, and long periods without extended family nearby. After the war, they returned to Brooklyn, but the sense of uncertainty remained. Frequent moves and financial strain shaped Diamond's personality. He became quiet and self-contained. Later, he recalled feeling like an outsider even among classmates who were not much better off than he was. At Erasmus Hall High School, he studied alongside Barbra Streisand. Both came from modest families. Diamond would later describe them as 2 poor kids trying to find direction. They were not close friends, but the shared background reinforced his awareness of social gaps and personal limitations. Music entered his life when he was 16. A relative gave him his first guitar. Soon after, he attended a camp where folk singer Pete Seeger performed. Watching Seeger command a crowd with simple songs made a strong impression. Diamond realized that music could connect one person to thousands. He began writing songs almost immediately. After graduating high school, Diamond enrolled at New York University on a fencing scholarship. He initially planned to study medicine. The decision was influenced by the death of his grandmother from cancer, an event that left a deep emotional mark. He wanted to pursue a stable career and help others avoid similar loss. Yet music kept pulling him back. By his senior year, he faced a choice: finish his degree or chase a songwriting career with no guarantees. He chose music. The decision carried immediate financial consequences. Without a diploma, he lost a clear professional path. For a time, he survived by writing advertising jingles and pitching songs to publishers across New York's Tin Pan Alley. Rejection became routine. Some weeks, he barely earned enough to cover rent. In 1966, Diamond released Solitary Man, his first major hit as a performer. The song described a man who avoids commitment because he expects disappointment. Its tone mirrored Diamond's own emotional state: cautious, guarded, and used to standing alone. That same year, he signed with Bang Records. The partnership brought early success, but quickly turned tense. Diamond clashed with label executives over creative control. Legal disputes followed, trapping some of his recordings in contractual conflict. One major loss involved I'm a Believer, a song he wrote that became a massive hit for the Monkees. Although it proved his songwriting talent, He did not gain the long-term control he wanted over the work. The pressure triggered a creative slump. Income was inconsistent. Industry politics limited his momentum. At the same time, his growing career placed strain on his personal life. In 1963, Diamond had married his high school sweetheart, Jay Posner. As he spent longer hours chasing opportunities, distance entered the marriage. Financial uncertainty and professional frustration added weight to an already fragile situation. By the late 1960s, Diamond had achieved recognition, but the path there was marked by risk, isolation, and constant doubt. These early struggles established a pattern that would follow him for decades. Success on the surface, turbulence underneath. The first major health crisis, 1979. By the late 1970s, Neil Diamond had reached a new level of fame. Sweet Caroline, released in 1969, had become a stadium anthem. His concerts sold out across the United States and overseas. Promoters saw him as a reliable draw. Audiences saw him as an energetic performer who rarely slowed down. Behind the momentum, warning signs appeared. Diamond began losing sensation in his right leg. At first, the numbness came and went. He told himself it was exhaustion from constant travel. His schedule left little room for medical visits. Canceling shows meant disappointing thousands of fans and risking major financial losses. He chose to continue performing. The condition worsened through 1979. One night in San Francisco, during a live performance, Diamond suddenly lost strength and collapsed on stage. Crew members rushed to help him. The concert stopped. Within days, doctors identified the cause, a benign tumor pressing against his spinal cord. Though not cancerous, the growth threatened permanent paralysis if left untreated. Surgeons recommended immediate operation. The procedure was expected to last between 9 and 12 hours. Doctors needed to remove part of a vertebra to relieve the pressure. The risks were severe. There was a possibility he might never walk normally again. Before entering the operating room, Diamond prepared for the worst. He wrote letters to his family in case he did not survive. The act was practical, but deeply emotional. For the first time in his adult life, career concerns disappeared behind a single question: whether he would live. The surgery succeeded, but recovery proved slow. Diamond remained hospitalized for weeks. When he was finally allowed to stand, he relied on crutches. Simple actions required effort. Walking across a room became a measured task instead of an automatic movement. The sudden loss of physical independence affected him psychologically. Used to commanding large stages, he now faced long hours of stillness. Reports from the period suggest he experienced a short phase of depression, driven by uncertainty about his future as a performer. Yet, he focused on returning to work. By 1980, Diamond accepted a leading role in the film The Jazz Singer. The project demanded both acting and singing, signaling to the public that he was still capable. The soundtrack produced the hit America, reinforcing his commercial strength. The health scare left a lasting imprint. It forced him to confront vulnerability at the height of success. Afterward, many observers noted a deeper emotional tone in his performances. His delivery grew more reflective, less driven by pure showmanship. The crisis did not end his career. Instead, it sharpened his awareness that stability could vanish without warning, a lesson that would echo through the next decades of his life. Family loss and divorce, 1980s to 1990s. In 1985, while Neil Diamond remained one of the most recognizable voices in American music, his father, Akiba Diamond, died after a period of illness. The loss struck quietly but deeply. Akiba had spent years working to support the family, often prioritizing stability over comfort. His presence represented discipline and endurance, values Diamond carried into his career. When he passed, Diamond was forced to confront a personal emptiness that success could not fill. More than 3 decades later, his mother, Rose, died in 2019 at the age of 100. Her final years were marked by gradual physical decline. She moved more slowly, relied increasingly on care, and lived a quieter life. Watching her weaken over time gave Diamond space to prepare emotionally, but it did not soften the finality of her absence. With both parents gone, a foundational chapter of his life closed. Loss sharpened a feeling already embedded in his identity: emotional separation. Years earlier, Diamond had written "I Am, I Said," a song about not belonging fully to any place or group, after experiencing the deaths of his parents. Its message felt less artistic and more autobiographical. Fame placed him before millions, yet grief remained private. Parallel to these losses were fractures within his marriages. Diamond married his first wife, Jay Posner, in 1963, before his career fully accelerated. They built a young family and had 2 daughters. As opportunities increased, so did his time away from home. Recording sessions stretched late into the night. Tours kept him traveling for weeks. Professional momentum slowly replaced domestic routine. Distance entered the marriage in practical ways: missed dinners, shortened conversations, postponed plans. Over time, absence became the dominant pattern. By 1969, the relationship ended in divorce. The separation left Diamond with lasting guilt. He later recognized that ambition had limited his presence as a father. School events passed without him. Ordinary nights, the kind that build memory, were often spent in another city. Success had provided financial security for his children, but not consistent proximity. That same year, he married Marcia Murphy, a production assistant he met while working in television. Their marriage brought structure during a period of rapid professional expansion. Together, they had 2 sons, and for many years the household appeared stable. The marriage lasted 26 years, making it the longest relationship of his adult life. Yet durability did not prevent erosion. Touring continued to dominate his schedule. Even when physically present, creative demands occupied his attention. His children grew up understanding that their father belonged partly to the public. In 1995, the marriage ended in a divorce widely reported for its financial scale. Estimates placed the settlement near $150 million, roughly half of Diamond's wealth at the time. Observers focused on the number, but Diamond spoke about the emotional cause instead. He described the breakup as an outgrowth of my despair, suggesting a gradual accumulation of strain rather than a single breaking point. The financial impact was immediate, but the relational cost carried greater weight. Divorce reorganized the structure of his family and highlighted years of emotional distance. He could rebuild earnings through recordings and tours. Lost time with his children could not be restored. By the mid-1990s, Diamond remained commercially strong, yet his private life reflected a repeating truth. Public admiration often existed alongside personal absence. Family loss and divorce clarified the limits of success. Achievement could elevate a career, but it could not protect the relationships closest to him. Parkinson's disease and forced retirement. In January 2018, just days before his 77th birthday, Neil Diamond received a diagnosis that would permanently alter his life: Parkinson's disease. The neurological disorder affects movement and has no known cure. For a performer whose career depended on physical stamina and stage presence, the news carried immediate consequences. At the time, Diamond was preparing to continue his 50-year anniversary world tour. Dates in Australia and New Zealand were already scheduled. Tickets had been sold. Travel plans were in place. Then the announcement came. All remaining shows were canceled. The decision ended more than 5 decades of touring almost overnight. In his public statement, Diamond apologized to fans, but explained that his doctors advised him to stop performing. Continuing could worsen his symptoms. For the first time since the 1960s, the road that had defined his professional identity was closed. Acceptance did not happen quickly. Diamond later admitted that it took 1 to 2 years to fully process the diagnosis. The transition from constant motion to sudden stillness created emotional strain. He entered therapy to manage anxiety and periods of depression. The adjustment was not only physical, but psychological, a shift from being seen as tireless to confronting visible limitations. Symptoms appeared gradually. His movements slowed. Tremors affected his hands. Tasks that once required no thought demanded focus. Public appearances became less frequent. He adopted a more private routine, spending extended time at home rather than traveling. Yet he was not alone. Since 2012, Diamond has been married to Katie McNeil, a former music executive. Their relationship proved steady during the health crisis. She remained closely involved in his care and daily life. Diamond often emphasized her commitment, describing her presence as a promise to be there to the end. The stability contrasted with earlier decades marked by separation. In a 2023 interview with CBS, Diamond spoke with unusual calm about his changed identity. "I'm no longer the big star," he said. Acknowledging that the era of large-scale touring had passed, the statement carried acceptance rather than defeat. Retirement from touring did not mean complete withdrawal from music. Diamond continued writing and recording when possible. He also supported charitable efforts, including organizations focused on Parkinson's research. These activities allowed him to remain connected to the industry without the physical demands of live performance. The diagnosis forced him to redefine success. Applause and sold-out arenas gave way to quieter forms of contribution. Parkinson's closed one chapter of his life, but did not erase his voice. It simply changed how that voice reached the world. Other struggles and how he endured them, even at the height of his fame. Neil Diamond faced a challenge few fans could see: stage fright. Before concerts, he often experienced intense anxiety. His breathing tightened. Doubt surfaced moments before walking on stage. Yet once the performance began, discipline took over. Night after night, he treated fear as part of the job rather than a signal to stop. In the mid-1970s, Diamond made an unusual decision. Between roughly 1973 and 1976, he reduced his songwriting output to focus more on family life. The pause created unintended pressure. Without a steady stream of new material, income became less predictable. Expectations from record labels did not disappear. Choosing family over productivity carried a financial risk, but it reflected a growing awareness that constant work had personal costs. Creative uncertainty did not last. Diamond redirected his emotional energy into ambitious projects. One example was the soundtrack for Jonathan Livingston Seagull, 1973. The music explored themes of purpose, isolation, and self-discovery, subjects that paralleled his own internal questions. The project demonstrated a pattern that would define much of his career. He translated discomfort into artistic expression rather than suppressing it. Over time, Diamond spoke openly about this process. "When you sing a sad song with tears in your eyes, you'll feel better," he once said. The statement was less poetic than practical. For him, songwriting functioned as emotional release. Decades later, after his Parkinson's diagnosis, that instinct toward contribution remained. He supported charitable initiatives connected to neurological research, helping direct attention and funding toward the disease. Though no longer touring, he stayed engaged with audiences in quieter ways. In 2022 and 2023, Diamond made surprise appearances at performances of A Beautiful Noise, the Broadway musical based on his life. When he walked onto the stage, crowds responded with standing ovations. The moments were brief but symbolic, proof that physical limitation had not erased his connection to listeners. Across decades, Diamond encountered fear, creative pauses, illness, and uncertainty. His response remained consistent: adapt, create, and continue forward. Conclusion: Neil Diamond's life followed no simple arc of success. From a childhood shaped by financial strain and constant relocation to the emotional distance that accompanied fame, hardship appeared at nearly every stage. He lost his father while still navigating the pressures of global recognition. He watched his mother fade with age decades later. 2 marriages ended despite years of commitment. Health crises interrupted his momentum, first with spinal surgery in 1979 and later with Parkinson's disease, which ultimately forced him away from touring. Yet these events did not dismantle him. They refined him. Each setback deepened the emotional clarity that listeners heard in his voice. Songs were not detached performances. They carried traces of lived experience. When Diamond sang about isolation, belonging, or endurance, the themes reflected realities he understood firsthand. Hardship became material, not an endpoint. This pattern explains why his music has remained durable across generations. Tracks like Song Sung Blue delivered a simple but persistent message. Sadness is temporary, and expression helps lighten its weight. The tone was never naive. It suggested acceptance rather than denial, a recognition that difficulty is part of any long life. Diamond gradually came to represent more than commercial success. He became an example of persistence without theatrics. His response to adversity was rarely dramatic. Instead, he adjusted, returned to work, and continued building. Even retirement followed that logic. When Parkinson closed the door on touring, he redirected his energy toward recording, philanthropy, and supporting medical research. His influence now extends beyond charts and ticket sales. Younger performers study his songwriting discipline. Audiences still gather to sing music written decades ago. The Broadway production. A Beautiful Noise introduced his story to another generation, reinforcing that the emotional core of his work remains relevant. Near the later stage of his life, Diamond spoke with noticeable calm about change. He acknowledged that he was no longer the performer who could command arenas night after night. Acceptance replaced resistance. What remained was gratitude for longevity, for listeners, and for the ability to keep creating in some form. One perspective often attributed to him captures this outlook. Life will challenge you, but expression helps you move through it. The idea is straightforward. Confront difficulty, give it voice, and continue forward. For readers, his story offers a quiet prompt. Achievement does not prevent loss. Stability is never permanent. What endures is the ability to adapt without losing direction. Those who want to understand him more fully can look to interviews, authorized biographies, and, most directly, the recordings themselves. Within them lies a consistent record of a man who met hardship repeatedly and chose creation over retreat. A legacy defined not only by success, but by resilience